Good morning, beautiful people. Hope you're having a great day. Just killed a fucking upper day. Absolutely loved it. I am in the process of finalizing my new split. I was getting kind of tired of my old one, so I'm making a new one. So that's actually what I wanted to talk about today, is how to make a split, how to make yourself a program. Obviously, we're not going to get into a ton of the nuance here, but I'll give you a basic outline. So first, you want to start with frequency. How often do I want to train? Actually, no. First, you want to start with what joint actions do I want to train? So what muscle regions do I want to grow? And for most people, that's going to be something, I want to grow my pecs, but when you're thinking about muscles, you want to think about regions first. Well, think about, because everyone wants to train the major muscle groups, but which regions do you specifically want to train, and which ones do you want to prioritize? Everyone over prioritizes upper chest. It's really small, and I think this started mainly from Sam Sulek saying that he only ever did incline presses, and that's a whole nother thing, because a lot of times when people are doing an incline press, they're not even doing upper chest, because the upper chest performs, yes, it does horizontal adduction, but it also is a very strong shoulder flexor. And so if you're just at an incline, but you still have a wide grip and you're mainly just doing horizontal adduction, you're not biasing the upper chest. You're still just hitting your mid chest very well, or your sternal. So essentially, a lot of people end up thinking they're biasing the upper. That's not the topic of the video. Topic of the video, pick your regions that you want to bias. So for the pecs, you have the upper, the upper is the clavicular, sternal is the mid, and the costal is the lower. Well, what does each one do? Upper pec, like I just said, is a very strong shoulder flexor. It's also a horizontal adductor. Now, the sternal pretty much just does horizontal adduction, and the costal does shoulder extension. So now that you know what they do, you can then pick movements based around them. So you're like, okay, well, I want to train my upper chest, so I'm definitely going to do something that involves shoulder flexion. Well, great, now I'm targeting two different things, because guess what else is a great shoulder flexor? Your front delt. So now you have knocked out two muscles. You're like, okay, so if I do, let's say, like a shoulder press, I'm going to do a shoulder press, and that's going to challenge shoulder flexion, and that's also going to challenge frontal plane adduction. So shoulder press is a great exercise to throw into your program, because you're going to challenge not only your clavicular pec, but also your front delt and your side delt. We have EMG data showing that a lateral raise and a shoulder press produce the same amount of activation for the side delt. And if you're doing it in the frontal plane, then even better, because now it's almost purely that frontal plane adduction. So the lateral delt, side delt, is going to get a ton of stimulus. So you pick that, you're like, okay, that is what I'm gonna do for my upper pecs. And for my sternal pecs, I'm going to do fly. Let's just say pec deck. Everyone loves pec deck. So I'm gonna do pec deck. And that's okay. So now think about that a little bit deeper. Mainly, I'm gonna be challenging the sternal pec. However, clavicular is going to be involved. So now I've got two exercises for the clavicular pec, one for the sternal. Costal, shoulder extensor. In my humble opinion, don't need to do anything for it. If you're a beginner or even intermediate, if you've been lifting for less than 5 years, don't fucking worry about it, to be honest. You're going to grow your lower chest from pretty much everything, and it's also very hard to grow and even to really notice. So I would say you don't need to, but if you do want to focus it, something like a top half pullover machine would be great. That's also going to hit the long head of the triceps very well. So you're just staying in that top range of motion. And you can also just do it with a dumbbell pullover. That's why everyone who says that the dumbbell pullover is a lat exercise, just don't listen to them at all. Because the lats aren't fucking doing anything in that. They might do a little bit, but they're barely doing anything. And like that, a dumbbell pullover is a chest exercise, point blank. And anyway, so that's chest. We have 3 exercises that we're gonna do, maybe, and we're gonna cover all 3 regions. Perfect. Now, let's move on to the shoulders. We don't fucking need anything else. Just focusing on the chest, we've already knocked out shoulders. You've got your shoulder press, so that's hitting your clavicular pec, that's hitting your lateral, your side delt, that's hitting your front delt, and it's hitting your rear delt. Shoulders are good. Your front delts same thing with the costal pecs. You don't need to isolate your front delts, especially if you haven't been in the gym for over 5 years. If you've been in the gym for over 5 years and you're like, damn, my front delts are lacking, that's where you might want to throw in like a cable front raise and really challenge with an ascending profile so that you're really challenging it right at that top, the top end. And anyways, actually, fuck, what am I saying? Descending profile. You want to target at the bottom. Because as you get to the top, Anyways, most of y'all don't even need to worry about that, but if you are going to do a front raise, you're going to want it to have a descending profile. You want it to get easier as you get to the top, because that's where your pecs have better leverage. And you can probably just feel it if you have ever done a front raise. If you have one that's really challenging at the bottom, it's pretty much just front delt. And then as you get to the top, it's a lot more upper chest. That's why you don't want to do a dumbbell front raise, because that's more of just an upper pec exercise. Because it's the hardest right at the top, where you have your forces. When you want to know where something is the hardest, first of all, where does it feel hardest? That's the easiest way to find out. But if you really want to know what's the resistance profile, it's where are the force vectors perpendicular. So where are they forming a 90-degree angle? And when you think about front raise, when my hands are straight out, gravity is the force. In this case, it's going straight down. Right there. That's where the pecs are going to be working the most. So don't do dumbbell front raises if you're trying to work the front delts. Do something with a cable that's hardest at the bottom. So set the cable to like hand height. Anyways, shoulders are done. We don't need to worry about them. Rear delts, same thing. I don't think anyone needs to isolate them. Front and rear delts, you're good. They're working all the fucking time. And let's see. I didn't even mention the shoulder press. Back to how just goated the shoulder press is. You're hitting medial and lateral triceps too. So you're fucking covering so many bases with a shoulder press. That is your meat and potatoes. You don't even need a lateral raise. Everyone thinks, oh, I need lateral raises. Spam lateral raises for big delts. No. Pick a fucking shoulder press and just get strong as fuck at it. Max the stack. Throw a gym pin on there. That's how you get big delts. It's like your side, everyone thinks that having massive side delts is what makes your shoulders look huge. No, it's having, you want that 3D Death Star delt, that you need big front and rear delts, and a lateral raise is not going to give you either of those. So that's why I rant about why shoulder press is amazing, and ideally a frontal plane one, so you want to be straight out to the side. Sagittal is going to be more upper chest, but we don't really want that. We want, because upper chest is also going to hit the pec deck. You want to challenge your shoulders in the shoulder press. If you really want another upper pec exercise, you could throw in a fly. And this is where you'll want one that has an ascending profile, so where it's actually hardest at the top. So now you've covered your chest, you've covered your shoulders. Triceps are getting hit a little bit. Now let's go into biceps. Biceps, you got 3 elbow flexors. You have brachialis, brachioradialis, and of course the biceps brachii. So, how do we challenge each one? Brachialis, you don't need to bias. That bitch is working all the time. And it's also very hard
to grow.
Can you grow it? Yeah, you can grow everything. But if it's not growing, your brachialis it's kind of like your abs. If your brachialis is not growing from everything else, all the other bicep movements, curls that you're doing, it's not going to grow any more than that. You might be able to bias it a little bit, but I would say for the most part, your meat and potatoes is going to be from just any curl variation. So for biceps, you want it to be ideally hardest around 40 degrees of elbow flexion, but that's getting so nitpicky. Just pick a bicep curl variation that you like and get strong as fuck. So for most people, I would just recommend a preacher curl. It's stable, it's easy, it's fun. I don't know anyone that doesn't like a preacher curl, even with like a barbell preacher curl. Easy bar, if it's better on the wrist, at least for me and for everyone that I've talked to likes an easy bar better than a straight bar curl. But hey, you do you. Easy bar curl, dumbbell curl, anything, any preacher curl, fucking, you can do a recline curl, you can do standing dumbbell curls. At the end of the day, as long as you're flexing the elbow, your bicep is gonna grow. Point blank period. And brachioradialis is gonna work very well in pretty much every curl as well. If you are a little bit more trained and you notice that your brachioradialis is smaller than what you would like it to be, then you could throw in you're gonna want something with a pronated grip. So you're gonna want your palms facing down and ideally an ascending resistance profile. So you could do a banded easy bar curl. The best way would be to do a top half range of motion, something like you could do a cable curl, top half range of motion. I like to just sit down and put the easy bar on my lap so that you're already starting the motion or the movement from 90 degrees of elbow flexion, and then you're just going to the top. Real easy. And you can just fucking do it right after you do, if you're doing easy bar preacher curls, just sit right there and go grab a different easy bar. You might even be able to use the same one. And just sit there and do your top half curls for your brachioradialis. So now your elbow flexors are good. You're covered. Let's move on to the elbow extensors, your triceps. Remember, we're already hitting our medial and lateral head from our shoulder press. If you don't like a shoulder press, let's say you're so married to lateral raises, fine. Then you should probably be doing some sort of press. So if you're not doing a shoulder press, you should probably throw in a bench incline or a flat, just some sort of press, because presses are just amazing for everything. And so that'll hit your medial and lateral heads very well. Long head's not going to get hit because you have antagonist inhibition. Ooh, fancy word. It just means that when you have a muscle that crosses two joints, like the long head of the triceps, it crosses the elbow and the shoulder, it gets turned off when you ask it to do opposing joint actions. So I find that this is the easiest to explain with the hamstrings. The hamstrings are also a two joint muscle. So the hamstrings flex the knee and extend the hip. So in something like a squat, where you're doing both knee extension and hip flexion, if you asked the biceps, it's really annoying that they call the hamstrings biceps as well, but I'll just say the hamstrings. So the hamstrings are going to be turned off in this movement, because if they were turned on, they would be trying to flex your knee at the same time as extending your hip. So they're not going to provide anything to hip extension, because if they were turning on, then they would also be trying to flex your knee, which you just wouldn't be able to move, because your knee, you're trying to extend the knee, and then the hamstring is trying to flex it at the same time. You wouldn't be able to move. So that's antagonist inhibition, and that's why we have studies looking at hamstring growth during squats. Even in beginners, there's like barely anything. So yeah, maybe once you have, that's why we see a little bit of growth in beginners, but in train lifters, we don't really see it. And it's like, yeah, your hamstrings probably are contributing at that very, very top end. Once your knee is fully flexed, or fully extended, sorry, then you have that last little bit of hip extension. Sure, that's where your hamstrings are probably activated. Anyways, all that yap to say, long head doesn't work in presses. We don't know about dips because we only really have data for going to 0 degrees of extension. We don't know what happens when you go back here. Some people think that the long head now can contribute again, but we just don't know. So it's all theory that about if the long head works in a dip or not. And so for triceps, you're hitting medial and lateral heads with any form of a press, and then you have your long head works best in the anatomical position. So just arm by your side, pick a fucking extension. Any extension works. Do a seated one, do a standing one. This is where, and then things can get a little bit complicated with triceps because, you know, people are like, oh, do I need to do a supinated, or should I do a neutral grip, or does pronated matter? Maybe. Don't fucking worry about it. You're majoring in the minor at that point. It's not going to really matter. Like, yeah, you might get the most activation by a tiny, tiny fucking bit if you do it supinated, so go for that if you want. If you're a true maximalist, do it supinated, but for the most part, just do whatever's comfortable, man. Do whatever's most comfortable. And you ideally want to be able to get to full extension. So I like using a long rope. If you don't have a long rope, just use 2 ropes and pull them all the way through. And then the other fucky thing with the triceps is when you get into the overhead position. So this is where theoretically, the long head shouldn't work here. It should be suffering from antagonist inhibition in this position. We have the weird brown paper that showed that it grew more from the overhead extension, but it hasn't been repeated, which is really annoying because it's been a while since the brown paper came out and there's still fucking nothing about it. So if you want to cover all your bases, then do a press, do an overhead extension, and do an extension with your arms by your side. In my opinion, I don't think you need an overhead press, because if you're doing it to bias the long head, then you're fighting against theory. You're using evidence to fight against theory, and there's only a little bit of evidence that you're using to really back your claim. And if you're doing it to bias the medial and lateral head, just do a press. So like a JM press. And that way you can kind of just avoid all of the weirdness around it. Everyone has their own culty camp of which one they think is better. So now you've got your elbow extensors. What's next? Back. Rear delts. We already covered them. You're good. And let's see, traps. Kelso shrug. Easy. You have upper, middle, and lower traps. They just do retraction and elevation. Do you need to train elevation? No, I don't think so. You can. But your upper traps are tiny. Like the what you see from the front, that's mainly your middle traps. Your middle traps mainly are scapular retractors. So do either a row or a Kelso shrug. I'm not gonna weigh in on this whole fucking debate. Do whatever one you like more, and whatever one looks better. In all honesty, I would record yourself doing a Kelso shrug and then record yourself doing a row, and whatever you can get the most scapular retraction on and whatever you feel the best with, I would do that. And so, but you do have to take some things into consideration if you are going to be doing a row or a shrug. Because if you're doing a row, you have more brachioradialis, and see, again, this is why you don't really need to bias it. And of course, more just biceps in general, your elbow flexors are going to be involved to some degree. You can't take them out. And you're also going to have rear delts. Once again, don't need to train rear delts directly. And if you're doing a row, you're also probably going to have, not probably, you're definitely going to have some lats worked in there as you're extending the elbow. If you, the higher up you are, the less lats. The closer you are to being in the anatomical position, the more lats. So if you're picking a row, and your goal is to hit the traps, try to be as far up as you can. The best cue that I use is drive your elbows into the ceiling. Because as you try, your body wants to move the weight, so your elbows are going to creep down anyway. So as long as you're thinking drive the elbows back, you're good. And then for the lats are easy. It's just fucking frontal plane adduction, shoulder extension, right? So if you're doing a row, you're training shoulder extension already. And then for fucking adduction, it's just pick a pull down, pick a flap, whatever you fucking want to do. And I'll go into, in the next video, I'll talk about how to structure the workout, but this is mainly just picking exercises and picking regions. So yeah, we'll talk about structure and unilateral versus bilateral. Anyways, peace out.